Welcome to CS 1401 video 7.2. In the last video, I talked about how to define and use logical expressions in pseudocode. In this video, we'll work on implementing logical expressions in the Java programming language. Let's start with the algorithm isWeekendDay. You'll recall that the idea of this algorithm is to check whether a day is Saturday or Sunday, as opposed to being a workday. I've implemented the algorithm in Java, and before we look together at the code, let's take a look at executing the Java program at the command line. We'll see in a minute that I've written the Java program in such a way that instead of entering data in response to a prompt, the program takes its arguments on the command line, which simplifies the way the program works. So I'll compile the program, I'll run it with the test of Saturday, and sure enough, Saturday is a weekend day. I'll also try running it with Monday, and not surprisingly, Monday is not a weekend day. Next, let's take a look at the code in which this program was implemented. We'll create a class called isWeekendDay, and it starts as usual with public static void main. And here we're going to have to pay a little attention to what's in the parentheses after main. What that expression is saying is that there's going to be a set of arguments, which are called args, and they're going to be of type string. And we can access them by saying, for instance, args sub 0, which is the very first of the arguments. So I'll create a variable called the day of type string, and we'll assign the first argument to it, and that's the only argument, which is going to be the name of the day we're checking. So then my idea is to print out the statement, whatever the name of the day is a weekend day, colon, followed by the word true or false. So I'll call system.out.print the day plus is a weekend day, and note the spaces around the expression so that it looks pretty when it comes out. And then I'll call system.out.println, which will complete our expression. And what I'm going to print is the result of evaluating the logical expression, namely that the day equals, quote, Saturday, close quote, or, and in Java, or is represented by those two vertical lines, the day equals Sunday. Now, why did I use dot equals? It's because the string type, and the day is a variable of type string, has a method for comparing strings, and that method is called equals. So basically we're calling the day, the variable's own method for evaluating whether it's equal to some other string, namely Saturday or Sunday. So if the day equals Saturday or the day equals Sunday, then that expression will evaluate to true, and it will print out true. Otherwise, it'll print out false, and it'll say Monday is a weekend day, colon, false. Next, let's take a look at the Java implementation of the logical expression isEven. I've written a Java program that takes an argument from the command line and checks to see if that argument is even or not. I'll compile my program and run it with an even number, and sure enough, the program says it's even. I'll try it again with an odd number, and as we expected, the program returns that the number is not even. Let's take a look now at the implementation of this program in Java. So it starts out with public static void main and then the string arguments. Now, as I mentioned just now, the arguments are of type string, but numbers, like the kind we want to evaluate, integers, are not strings. They're not sequences of characters. So we have to somehow convert the string coming in as an argument to our method into an integer that we can use in our program. So what I'm going to do is create a new variable called the number of type int, and we'll assign it, with the equal sign there, the value, the integer value created by parsing the string as an integer. And that's what that method integer.parseInt does. And remember that args sub 0 is the first, and in this case the only argument coming in to isEven. So then, following the same kind of approach I had with isWeekendDay, I will print out the number isEven colon, and then I'll print out either true or false. The percent sign in the next expression is the Java operator for remainder. And if that's equal numerically to 0, then that expression is evaluated as true. And you'll note that the Java operator for integer equality is two equal signs. When we run isEven, we should get something like the number, whatever the number is even, and then true or false based on whether it's even or odd. Next, let's move to the logical expression isWithin. I've created a Java implementation of that, and I can compile it and run it from the command line, so I can check to see if 45 is between 0 and 100, and sure enough it is. And likewise, minus 45 is not between 0 and 100. So I've created a class for that, and it's actually going to have 3 arguments. As you may remember, the arguments to isWithin are the number itself, our lower bound, and our upper bound. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an integer variable called the number, into which we will put the first argument as an integer, a second variable called lower bound, into which we will put the second argument, and a third variable, also an integer, called upper bound, into which we will put the third argument. And then we will print out the value of the number, and then isWithin, lower bound, and upper bound, and then either true or false, and we'll evaluate the expression at the bottom there to determine whether we're going to print out true or false. So if the number is greater than or equal to the lower bound, and the logical operator in Java for and is 2 ampersands, and the number is less than or equal to lower bound. And if that's true, we'll print out true, and if that's false, we'll print out false. Next, let's look at the Java implementation of the pseudocode logical test check2tests. You'll remember that check2test tests whether a number is even or if it's within the lower bound and the upper bound. I'll compile my program, and again it will take arguments from the command line. Let's try it out by seeing if the number 18 is even or if it's between 45 and 55. Sure enough, check2test comes back true because 18 is even. I'll run check2tests again, this time with 19, 45, and 55. And as expected, it comes back false because 19 is neither even nor between the interval 45 and 55. I'll run the program a third time with the arguments 47, 45, 55. And that returns true because even though 47 is not even, it is within the interval 45 to 55. Let's take a look at the Java code for the algorithm check2 tests. So here again, I've got the same start because I've got the three arguments for the number itself, the lower bound, and the upper bound. I'll print out a explanation of what we're doing, and then I'll print out true or false based on this more complex expression. So we'll print out true if the number modulo 2 is equal to 0, that is, it's even, or if the number is between the lower bound and the upper bound. That's a look at how to implement the use of logical expressions in the Java programming language. In the next class, the videos will talk about how to use logical expressions to write conditional statements. I'll see you then.